Welcome to this channel. My name is Abdullah Saeed. I am a professor of Islamic studies at the University of Melbourne. Today we are diving into an example that really shows the different approaches to Qur'anic interpretation. We are using riba, often translated as usury or interest, as our case study. This example is especially useful for understanding how scholars or the ulama have engaged with the Qur'anic text over time, whether they relied in their interpretation mostly on tradition or blended tradition with reason, or looked at things through a modern lens. Let's start with the classical approaches. Some scholars of the past focused primarily on tradition. They would examine the Qur'anic verses very carefully, breaking down difficult words, looking at reports on occasions of revelation that are about when and why the verses were revealed, and checking out relevant hadith if any. On riba, there are hadiths by the Prophet. In these hadiths, the focus is not so much on debts and interest, which the Quran seemed to be concerned about, but on certain kinds of exchanges, like trading gold for gold, silver for silver, or dates for dates. These items were essential commodities at the time, and any unfair addition in the trade could lead to exploitation. It's interesting to note that while the Quran hints at the pre-Islamic practice of debt, where loans could double and redouble, the hadith mainly spotlight a different type of riba, those imbalanced commodity exchanges that could harm one party. These are two very different kinds of riba. One is about debts and interest, and the other is exchange of certain goods. Then there were scholars who combined tradition with reason. They did all the traditional analysis, but also went a step further. They dug into the linguistic details of the key terms and asked broader questions about why riba was prohibited and what its social impact might have been. By combining these methods, they saw that riba wasn't just about the escalating debt practices of pre-Islamic times. It also included these unfair commodity trades that the Prophet warned against. This blend of tradition and reason gives us a richer understanding of the text and its intended message. Fast forward to the modern period, and you see a split in interpretation. Traditionalist scholars, who seem to be the dominant in the discourse on riba today, still stick closely to the classical view. They maintain that any form of interest, whether it's fixed, variable, simple, or compound, falls under the Qur'anic prohibition of riba. For them, it's pretty straightforward. All interest is just another form of what was forbidden back then. It is notable that today's traditionalist scholars do not talk very much about the commodity exchanges that were so prominent in the classical discussions on riba. The focus of traditionalist scholars today is interest. On the other hand, modernist scholars take a different approach. They focus on understanding the historical context of pre-Islamic riba, how it functioned in society, often leading to exploitative practices where debt could spiral out of control and trap people in cycles of poverty and exploitation. For modernists, the key issue is injustice and exploitation. They argue that in our regulated modern financial systems, not every instance of interest is inherently harmful. For example, interest on a home or car loan might simply serve a practical purpose, as long as it doesn't impose an undue burden on the borrower. Modernists, therefore, tend to differentiate between interest that genuinely leads to exploitation and forms of interest that are manageable within today's economic framework. So, for modernists, the focus should be on riba, that is prohibited in the Quran, and it is about exploitation and injustice, not interest per se. When interest becomes exploitative and unjust, it becomes riba. So, by using riba as our example, we can clearly see how different interpretative approaches shape our understanding. The classical methods, whether relying on tradition alone or on a mix of tradition and reason, tend to view riba in a particular way, encompassing both the exploitative debt practices of the pre-Islamic period and the unfair commodity exchanges described in the Hadith. Traditionalists today largely stick with this view. Modernists make finer distinctions by focusing on the social justice aspects of exploitation. So today, traditionalist scholars who interpret riba as interest in all its forms are the dominant and most visible. Modernist scholars who argue that not all forms of interest are riba are not as visible. This example not only deepens our grasp of the concept of riba, but also illustrates how diverse approaches to interpretation can lead to different conclusions about the same text. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more lectures and videos on the Quran and Quran-related modern debates and issues. Don't forget to subscribe and join me in the next video for more insights.